Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot. I'm your host, Holly, and this week I am so excited for my guest, Flint Del Sol. Flint, who uses he, him pronouns, is a veteran transgender teacher, author, and educational content creator with over a decade of experience in the classroom and within state and national LGBTQ education and public health policy. In addition to working in law and action in his community, he has a significant presence in the online world, where he makes videos about trans life and history, education, and mental and emotional health for his more than 400,000 followers, frequently partnering with organizations such as the National Education Association and the Human Rights Campaign. I have been following Flint for quite some time on social media, and I am just delighted to share this amazing conversation that we had with each other. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Flint. Welcome, Flint, to the podcast. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I have been following you on social media. There's no not creepy way to say that. I've been following you for quite a while, love your content so much. And I knew that I just had to have you on. But for the listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're all about.
Absolutely. I'll say also before anything that one of my absolute favorite social situations to be in is when somebody recognizes me from the internet and tries to have a non-creepy way of starting that conversation. It's like, hey, I've been watching you for some time. But yeah, I've been making content on TikTok, Instagram, and I just branched into Substack for a while, I guess maybe 4 years now. I started as a high school teacher. I was a public teacher for 10 years. And when I started transitioning, I'm a trans man, I put my transition on the internet. And so I've been documenting that experience and talking about trans life, culture, education, healthcare for as long as I've had a Wi-Fi signal.
I love that. All right, all the questions now come flooding into me. What got you started into teaching?
Ooh, so teaching, I always love talking about this because I'll ask somebody, like, if you remember the teacher that you had, right, when you were growing up, that was like the teacher that inspires you, that made you feel connected to the curriculum and got your blood pumping in class. I had the opposite experience where I had a teacher my senior year who was so bad at teaching English that I was like, I could do this. Like, I could do this better than you. And so I had like the anti-experience that a lot of teachers have. I had like the nega teacher that was anti-inspiring. Because I loved English. I loved writing and reading. Like I loved literature. I loved the whole thing. And by the end of my senior year, I really hated it. And I was like, wow, a teacher is a powerful person. Having someone in a room, right, that can really make or break how you feel about an entire subject of human existence for maybe the rest of your life. Like the number of people who decide they're not good at math or that they're not artists because of an experience with a teacher. And I was like, I can do the opposite. I can go into a classroom and put together an experience, right? Create a vibe that helps somebody find their own love for this subject.
I was a teacher for quite a while, and I went in for the traditional reason. Like, I love teaching. I always wanted to be a teacher since I was 5 years old. But I left that life because middle schoolers are something else. Teachers are so important, and for a lot of kids, they're make or break. And you don't realize the power of that until you're either in that situation, like that as a student, or when you recognize you're in that situation as a teacher. And the part that's really hard for me was when I was a teacher, recognizing it took me a long time to recognize I'm not loving this and I'm not loving being here. I am doing a huge disservice to myself and to these kids, right? And so then I knew it was time to hit the road on that, but good life lessons that came out of it, I guess. And that
Yeah.
middle schoolers are the worst.
I think any teacher who has served time in a middle school classroom it's a free ticket to heaven. You don't have to stop and check in on the way in. Like they just wave you right through that little hook with the red velvet rope. They open it up. You just get ushered right in. So congratulations on skipping that. I really do think that the middle school is it's ideally when a child learns to become a person. There's that bridge from childhood to adolescence that happens then. And it's not cute for anyone, right? any transition is kind of a weird one, right? That goo cocoon period where you're
Hmm.
just mush trying to decide who you're going to be. And it's hard to be the adult in the room while 40 young people are figuring that out at once.
Yes, it's a lot different now than it was back when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
With social media and everything, like I didn't have that. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a cell phone in middle school, but I also didn't have one with the internet. That and social media and that constant messaging of like who your society expects you to be. Every generation's like, well, we had it hard because of this, but I truly think like Gen Z and younger, they're really struggling. Like this, they have it tough. Like it's a lot. Like they're dealing with a lot.
They are, I don't think there's ever a really great time to be a teenager. Like it's just a hard, again, another hard transitional period at any point. But you had mentioned that you didn't have internet on your phone, and I did, but it was the button that you accidentally pushed when you were trying to do something else, and it opened the internet browser, and you panicked because you had to close it real fast because it was going to charge your parents $5. Like
Yes.
the hardest problems that we had with phones were that every text was like 14 cents. And so if you stayed up texting and you didn't realize you had accrued like a $7,000 phone bill, and you could like feel your heartbeat in your ears when you realized what had happened. So
Yeah.
we're missing that, right? They get to skip that part, but they have like a larger, more existential problem now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the world's on fire, so there's that.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't feel that way when we were growing up, but I'm really fascinated to know a little bit more about your experience transitioning for the world to see and on the internet. That's very brave on the internet to do. I mean, I think transitioning is very brave to do into, especially given our current climate where like, legislation is coming out all the time and there's so much hateful rhetoric. For anyone to say, I am going to be and live and experience who I am, but then take it to that next step and be like, and I'm also going to do it in front of thousands of people.
It's funny because that wasn't the original plan, right? I didn't get a TikTok and think, man, I can't wait to test out these new pronouns in front of 6 million strangers. Like that was not the ideal goal, right? Originally, it was I had been inside like a lot of us during the sort of the height, the beginning of COVID, and I missed the TikTok train while that was happening. I was just inside. I was painting mostly. I was doing acrylic painting and I was baking a lot of sourdough bread. I missed the TikTok train. And then when I was coming back into the classroom, it felt like a different place. And I was trying to figure out where I fit in this new scene for education. And so I was on the internet primarily to find queer people, but also like I wanted to connect with other teachers and I wanted to find a larger community. Like a lot of really big things were sort of happening for me at that time personally. And then I realized I was trans and I was already there. I was already online. I was already making stuff. And so
Mhm.
because I was doing what you might consider like vlogging, a vlog style videos where I was talking about my life and my experiences as a teacher, talking about transitioning just kind of happened naturally.
Mhm.
And it's interesting too to hear you talk about transitioning as being brave because I don't want to chastise that word choice at all. I don't
Mhm.
I really allies saying anything nice about us, I'll take it. And when you're trans, if you are a part of this identity, you understand that not being trans as a trans person is way harder.
Mhm.
So like the drag that I was doing for 30 years,
Mhm.
not knowing why it was that I felt the way that I did, right? I talk about feeling like I have a rock in my shoe, right, for a really long time. And I look around and everybody else gets it. This, I have three sisters. My sisters just had it handled.
Mhm.
It was effortless, right? My stepmother had it effortless. It was handled. And I had no idea why it was so hard for me to girl correctly
Mhm.
because no one saw, a girl and then later I transitioned and now I'm a man, right? I was a failed girl. People saw that I wasn't doing it right. And, I dealt with a lot of negativity, harassment right from the moment I hit puberty because they saw what I could feel, which is that I was doing this incorrectly. Something about this was wrong.
Mhm.
And so transitioning was almost like falling over. Like it was easy. The second
Mhm.
I knew who I was just stumbling into the person I had been since I was born. And so that part was not challenging. It was, all dealing with all the other people's feelings about it. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I can imagine. I can't imagine. Let me word that differently. I can't personally imagine what that feels like, but I hear you, and I appreciate you sharing that so openly and honestly.
I think you
Yeah.
do know what it feels like, and I want to challenge that a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Have you, because I love a metaphor. Have you ever like tried on, you like grab pants or something out of the laundry and you put them on and you're like, holy shit, these are like not right. They can't zip, something is off. And you either find out it's like somebody else's pants, right? Or they've like shrunk considerably and you take them off and you're like, oh, okay, like it's not just me. This is incorrect. Or something sized incorrectly, like in the store.
Yeah.
That feeling of relief when you take them off and you're like, okay, it's not just me. That's the feeling I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay, yeah. That's such a good way to explain it. I think when I was like, that's really brave to do on the internet, my thought was the other people too, right? Like having to deal with that, like having to people hide behind an anonymous profile and feel that gives them permission to say some vile, horrible, vile things. And so you said you were teaching at the same time. Yeah. How was that?
I mean, bad, Holly. It was bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. And, I think there was a time in which people hid behind anonymous profiles, and it just doesn't work like that anymore. Most of the more vile things that people say to me, they say with their whole chest behind their full government name.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this little exercise every once in a while. I delete and block really fast. I don't give them my energy. I only have so many hours. I've got shit to do. But sometimes someone will say something and I'll look and I'm like, that looks like your full first, middle, and last name. And you click on their little profile and it has the city they're in. And you scroll down and their kids are in their pictures, right? And I'm like, you are just living your life coming in and saying something horrifying and then going to church tomorrow. Like you're ready. You're just
Mm-hmm.
going to go in and be like, yes, thank you, Lord. Like I give my life to you, except for when it comes to people I don't care for, then I hope pain and death upon them. Like that's wild. And I had an experience recently where I Googled somebody because I was like, I just get a feeling about this guy. And I Googled him, and the first thing that came up were his court orders. I found records that he had been fired from his last job because he was a nurse. He'd been fired from his last job for posting things on the internet he wasn't supposed to. And there was just transcripts of his court documents just up on the internet. And I was like, what, have we learned nothing? You lost your last nursing job doing this, apparently. Like, what are we doing, dude?
Oh my gosh. And nurses and people in the medical field. Listen, I know the people in the medical field overall fine, but as a system, a lot of work to do. But the amount of nurses that still have not learned, I feel like 2020 and into 2021, when like a lot of nurses were getting fired over the stuff they were posting on the internet, would have been like a wake up call. Like you just can't say stuff on the internet, especially if you're going to use your whole first and last name and it's so easy to find you, use the same profile picture across all your social media platforms. I found somebody real quick. Like, I'm not even that person that like digs into people. I found someone, I'm like, I found your whole LinkedIn profile, literally just typed in your name. Like, it was so easy to find you because you have your name attached to your Amazon storefront. And that linked into your TikTok channel. It's so easy to find you, to find your workplace and to contact them. And I mean, it's just wild. I don't get why you would just spew some hatred towards a random stranger on the internet. Like, that's not normal behavior. That is not normal to go onto somebody's page and say hateful shit in the comments for someone you don't even know. Like, little snippets of their life through social media. That's not normal. That's like very weird. That's very weird behavior to me. Like it's not. I'm like I have to remind people who do that stuff on my videos. I'm like, that's not normal, friend. Like that's not a thing, normal people in a functioning society do. Like that's weird. You don't know me.
I like that you slipped a little bit into like the kindergartner or the kindergarten teacher persona, right? Like that, hey friend, like maybe let's step back. But that's I feel like every friend group or every you need someone who's like the research assistant friend who will do the deep dive. I'm very lucky that I have someone who is a very close personal friend who is a good research assistant So like if I'm not invested in figuring out more about something, she'll come back with like a 6-page dissertation with links, right? Like in MLA format, she's ready. And it's very, very helpful. Sometimes it provides some very interesting information. Not that you really are going to do a whole lot with it later, but it makes you feel a little bit more empowered in a situation that tries to disempower you.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course it's a woman who does that.
This
Yeah.
country is built on the back of specifically women's labor, always.
And women make the best, like little private investigators. Like we know exactly what we're looking for. As soon as you're like, and she and I was like, knew it. I knew it.
I do not have that many friends who are men. I'm not going to lie. And it's not because I don't want more friends who are men. I do have them.
Yeah.
Some of them are husbands of the women that I'm friends with. Um, but I think there's a blockade in male friendship that even right between cisgender men, their friendships are often they lack the depth of female friendships. And once you've been there, once you've had, the kind of friendship where you know everything about each other by 2 a.m., you can't go into casual, like fantasy football level male friendships. Like it's not possible.
No.
And so most of the men that I'm friends with are like therapists, teachers,
Mhm.
people who are, run podcasts, like people who do this a little bit more frequently and are more practiced in emotional attunement. But most of my friends are women.
I used to have a lot more guy friends, but as things started getting less like, oh, you identify with this political party and I identify with this and we coexist, and then it became like very much like, you have a Confederate flag in your basement. I don't think we can be friends. So like you're okay with very a lot of hatred and anti-LGBTQ plus. Nope. Nope, we
That's
cannot be
fair.
friends. We just can't. But that's just me. I think it's really difficult because like you said, like a lot of guys just aren't in tune with that like emotional aspect. And having some of these kind of deeper conversations, it just can't really get there. I think I have, I think I've had zero, of all the men I've had on my podcast have either been gay, trans, no straight men.
And I'm checking both of those boxes for you right now. That's
Ah,
so exciting.
I love it. I love it. Season three, I've been saying this so many times, but season three is not on purpose. It just happened to be uh the season for trans men. I have four guests this season so far, and not even into June. Four trans men, and I'm really excited because all four of you bring such unique and different experiences. I'm really giddy about it because I feel like folks, when they think of trans people, a lot of folks immediately go towards trans women.
Mhm.
And there isn't so much uplifting of voices of trans men. And for me, especially during this very heated political time, and when we're recording this, February 4th, it's not great. And when this comes out, it might also be really not great.
I love that your optimism, right? Because this is just a month-long production schedule. And
Yeah.
so the thought that maybe things will be fine in a month, I love it. I would like to pull that energy into my year.
I'm trying to just put that into the universe. So maybe,
Things will be fixed by then. That's great. That's good
maybe.
news.
I don't truly believe that. But I want to. Um, but internally I'm like, everything is shit. And the whole country is falling apart. And so for me it's really important always to have just such a diverse voices coming on this podcast and sharing their life experiences and just coming and chatting. It's the secret, not secret way that I make friends. I just host a podcast and just have guests on.
I mean, I think that's the 2025 way to make friends, right? I think especially the neurodivergent way to make friends.
Yes.
My husband and I are both autistic as well, and I when we were on a podcast for another autistic person, the two of us, so it was three autistic men on a podcast together. slowly trying to communicate to each other that we wanted to be friends.
Yeah.
It was getting, and now we're there. We have a group chat, so it's in. The
I
second
love it.
that happens, that's like that's the new way you know. We don't have MySpace anymore. We don't have top eight, so there's no way to know if you're actually friends with someone. That was helpful actually as an autistic person. That was a part of social media that I miss, where I
Mhm.
could see that I was valued in somebody else's slew of friends. Of course, it was also very stressful. I take it back. I don't want it
Oh,
back anymore.
no, no. I mean, let's bring back MySpace. I loved MySpace so much. I miss it.
Just being a coder, I feel like I've lost all of my computer skills now that I don't have to code, song Moon River in HTML into my. Do you want to guess what my MySpace theme was, my background and all of my
Gosh.
accoutrements? Do you want to guess? You get one guess because it's
I
going to
get
be boring to hear more than one.
okay. I feel like it was
You're trapped a little bit because if you go stereotypical, you're like there's no way to look like a strong ally here. So I'm trapping you.
so I'm stuck between two. I'm stuck
Okay, I
between
guess you can
but
do
like
two.
I'm stuck between it was like ultra feminine, like pink sparkles everywhere, or it was like total emo kind of vibe.
You have got, I'm gonna say it's like right in the center of those two. It was a very like Audrey Hepburn Parisian. It was like
Yes.
more of like a soft femme,
Love
but
it.
but a lot of like the my photo was full emo. We were the bangs right in front of the eyes. We were heavy bottom eyeliner, Billy
Yeah.
Joe Armstrong with Moon River with Audrey Hepburn in the background with her long French cigarette.
Yes. Okay, so it wasn't like super, super off.
No, that was actually I'm surprised. I'm proud of you. I think you did a good job.
Okay, good. I still can be an ally. Okay. It was a lot of pressure there, Flint. Okay,
You
you
can
put a
keep
lot of
it. Yeah,
pressure
you
in
can
there.
keep ally. I'm proud of you.
It's just wild thinking about doing big things on the internet. And I also commend you and say that like that's really dope because I think it just normalizes this conversation. It normalizes the ups and the downs, right? And the things about your experience transitioning, right? Is super inspiring to other people who are in a similar situation. And so I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but you're kind of a role
Like,
model.
yeah,
So
you're holding the entire world of trans existence on your back, and if you falter, no, I appreciate that. I mean, that's great. I know that also, your podcast is very specifically about the world of sex and sex education, and I was thinking when you were asking me about how I got into this, about when I first started making content, and I was talking about being trans in a more public way. So we're talking like the first 30, 40,000 followers on TikTok. Um, One of the very first opportunities I had to monetize, right? So you get emails every once in a while from people who like own businesses or whatever, and they say like, hey, if you talk about our product, we'll give you X number of dollars or whatever. And I was teaching full time at the time, and I was a public school teacher, right? Any amount of money is very exciting to have more than the pittance. Um, but the first company that reached out to me was a sex toy company, which is like really common. And the
yes.
thing about sex toy companies is that I won't name specific ones, right? Two things. One, will really reach out to just about anyone. So they want whoever, but predominantly queer communities. They really, really want queer people repping their products. And if you follow any queer people online, like especially bigger creators, you'll see that every once in a while, right? They'll hold something in front of their camera and they're like, look at this thing. And then they'll have some promo code right in their caption and power to them. But I was a full-time public school teacher in a red district. And it was like I had signed really briefly with an agency, and that's who they had sent it to me. They're like, here, do you want to do this? And I was like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. Like the idea that I'm already fighting for my life every day, just trying to convince PTA moms that having an LGBT YA book in my classroom isn't porn. Like I'm already there, right? Trying so hard. Just being trans does not make me a child predator. And you're gonna have me hold a womanizer up on screen and talk through the experiences no, absolutely not. And I think it's wild to think that anybody thought that that was a good idea. And I still have a lot of big feelings about the sexualization of queer creators, and
Mhm.
how often we do that. Because it's I'm all for sex positivity and power and owning your own sexuality, but when you are pigeonholed, right, or if you're a queer creator or a trans creator and the only people who are reaching out to you or the only opportunities you get are ones that are sexual, you don't have the opportunity to grow beyond that, and it
Mhm.
can be a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially like I think of a couple things. Number one is that like the very hateful rhetoric around LGBTQ plus people, but specifically trans folks, is around being sexual and over sexual and things like that. Um, but then also like there's a real opportunity for some of these brands to improve their products for the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't feel like they go that direction. It's more of just like, we look really cool and inclusive, and we're going to appease people if we have folks from the queer community and the trans community who are using our products and promoting them and are like brand ambassadors and things like that, right? Um, which like using any community for sake of appearances of being like an ally or anything without actually doing anything beyond that is gross. It's just gross. I don't have any nice way to put that.
And sometimes too, they'll it's not even that they won't take feedback, and because they won't, right? Like for the most part. But I had another, actually pretty recently, like within the last couple of months, a pretty big skincare company reach out. They weren't going to pay me to do something, which is also like a little bit insidious, right? A lot of times they'll say, here's something for free, and then will you make something? And it's like, I'm actually not going to do that for $20 in face lotion or whatever. But
Hmm.
reached out and they said, we'd love to send you like a little care package. And because I didn't have to promise to make anything, I figured, yeah, okay, sure. Send me your little package and I'll see if there's anything that I really like. And they had an option to go through and check box the stuff that you wanted.
Yeah.
And as a trans man, like if you're listening and you're a trans man, you'll know that as you take testosterone, your skin changes texture.
Mhm.
So your skin thickens, essentially, it gets oilier. And so like you end up getting breakouts, and they're harder to manage because you're essentially going through puberty again. But this
Mhm.
time you're doing a different puberty. It's bonus puberty with fun new additions that you don't know how to manage because you're 30 and it's been a while since you've had to figure any of this out, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to manage my skin, especially my skin on my face. I have hair coming in for the first time. And so I checkbox all the things that were like sensitive skin, face, exfoliators. And I was like, actually, this will maybe would be great because if we could figure something out where I could talk to trans guys about how to take care of their skin as they're transitioning. And when the package came, it didn't have any of the things that I had asked for, but it did have genital cream for making your genitals look more youthful. I don't know what that means. No, you're looking at me like I can explain more. No, I have no
Nope.
idea what that means. Um, there was like a bleaching, I don't know. There was something strange about, and that was the only product. They also had like champagne flavored gummy bears in there. Very strange. And then there's just this giant, and what do you want me to do with, like, the, even if it wasn't on purpose, right? Even if they hadn't thought through, it was just they were trying to get rid of inventory, right? Put things in boxes, ship them out. If you don't have a single person working in your social media office or inventory, right? Like you don't have somebody working in your office that's trans or knows a single trans person. You're going to run into situations in which you are not only not helping them, but actively insulting them.
Right.
When we talk about like what's DEI for, here's one.
Yeah.
You have literally any trans person in that room would have been like, hey, this is a shitty idea.
Hmm.
And if you accidentally send that to someone who's got a huge platform and decides, right, like you've released them to say what they need to about your product and comes on and says like, hey, this group only sees us for what's below our belt line.
Hmm.
That's, as you said earlier, it's gross. And
Yeah.
it can be really hard to like find your place and your footing in the world of like content creation
Mm-hmm.
as a trans creator because your options are limited and people know your options are limited. And
Mm-hmm.
you can have a really big platform and you can have a lot of followers, you can have a ton of influence and people who want to be a part of the things that you're promoting and there's still not a lot of people that'll take that leap with a trans creator because they're so afraid
Mm-hmm.
of what will happen to them.
It was so hard to find a place to pause, but you'll have to come back next week for part two of my conversation with Flint. I am so excited for you to hear the rest of our conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot. I'm your host, Holly, and this week is part two of my conversation with Flint. If you did not check out part one from last week, you're going to want to do that. We jump in at kind of a weird point for part two, where we ended on part one. If you're a longtime listener, you already know the drill. So this is really for all the new folks. So make sure you go back and listen to part one of my conversation with Flint, and then come back here for part two. Let's jump right in. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that from other like trans and non-binary content creators that I follow very closely. Brand deals, speaking engagements, all of this stuff canceled, canceled, canceled. Oh, we're going in a different direction now. And like this is livelihood, right? I always joke, it's not really a joke, but I do all this for free. This is my free time. Like I have a full-time job, I have other commitments, I'm a mom, like I do this stuff. This is just my passion and my hobby. I've always wanted to have a podcast. If it was ever income generating, great. I would be so excited. That's the dream. Um, and also I can't imagine like having all of these things, anticipating X amount of dollars coming in, basing your finances and all of that, then to be told we're going actually in a different direction and we don't know if this is the right move for our brand. Like, first of all, that's scary financially. Second of all, I have to imagine that feels real shitty just as a human being. Like, it's not like they didn't know beforehand, right? And a lot of these brands and engagements were probably reaching out to trans and non binary folks because of their identity, right? Because they have made that public on their platforms. I just can't even imagine thinking, A, that will hurt my brand, but B, what kind of customers do I want to have? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not I'm not a business person, so I probably am speaking way off. But in the work that I have done my whole life being a sexual health educator, I don't care to have customers who are just hateful and are not accepting of my identity as a queer woman or the identities of people that I'm really close with in my life. Or people that I don't even know. Like if you're just not accepting of people just being human beings, I don't know. I get like a brand perspective. You're trying to have money and I think people got really scared with the whole like Dylan Mulvaney and the Bud Light endorsement. Like that freaked a lot of brands out big time.
Yeah.
Which is super shitty because it was really just a small minority of people who are just very loud.
It's not my favorite, but I'm super lucky in that I have a like an actual manager now. So I have someone that fields a lot of these emails for me. And so I don't have to deal with quite the same level of communication and frustration. And also, I've taken the last 8 months to focus pretty exclusively on this book that I was writing. And so I hadn't been seeking content partnerships, and actually, I haven't for a while.
Mm.
And so I got to skip some of that because I wasn't looking for it, which was nice.
That was like such a really sneaky way to segue. You're like, oh, let me just drop this a little bit. Oops.
Super real, very, very, what actually happened was I had a moment where I thought, I know that's happening. Why haven't I been feeling that way? And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, you haven't been emailing with anyone lately because you have been sitting in your office pretending the world doesn't exist as you write frantically because you have ADHD and you wrote the majority of your book in the last 3 months of your 8 month contract. So,
Yeah. So let's segue there. I want to know
sure.
book. Ooh, tell us all about
Okay, well, I have a book. It's
it.
currently available. It's on pre-sale right now, which means you buy it and then you forget that you bought it, and then it shows up at your house in July, and you're excited because it shows up. That's my favorite. It's a gift to your future self.
Yes.
It's so great because if you buy it when it's out and then it shows up, it's just something that you expected. It's just mail. If you
Hmm.
buy it now, shows up in July, wow, it's a gift. So think
Yes.
about that when you're making
I
your
love
next
it.
decision.
Exactly.
But the book is called Teach Like an Ally, an Educator's Guide to Nurturing LGBTQ plus students. And books like this technically exist. The idea of like, what can we do to help support LGBT students? And I'll tell you, as someone who was focused in LGBT student support for the 10 years, 11 years, 12 years I was in the classroom, I own all of them. I own all of those books. I use them for my master's research. I got my master's degree specifically in LGBT classroom supports and education admin. And
Mm.
so when I was asked, do I want to write a book? And my publisher sought me out. I was like, yes, I want to write the same book that I keep thinking I'm about to read every time I buy one of these,
Mm.
because every single one of these books has the same thing in it. And I don't want that anymore. I want to know way more practically, what does a day-to-day allied classroom look like? It's
Mm.
not just, a school that has a GSA, or you have a rainbow flag sitting in the mug on your desk, or you got pronouns in your email signature. Those things are great. They're also like maybe going to be illegal pretty soon. And so it's
Mhm.
important to have other things and
Mhm.
an idea of what an allied mindset is in a classroom. And so the book is really like narrative. And so it's like really engaging. It doesn't read like stereo instructions the way a lot of classroom books do.
Mhm.
And so it's just a really fun read, but also is hugely practical. I have a lot of like plug and play stuff you can use in your classroom right away, like strategies and even lessons.
Mm.
And it's also not just for teachers. So the book is written so that really anybody, parents, administrators, if you feel like you need to reparent yourself a little bit if you're a queer person. So it's a book that has, I don't want to say something for everybody, but I do think a lot of people will get something out of it more so than you might think by knowing it as a teaching book. And so
Yeah.
I'm really excited for it to come out, and I've been working very hard on it since April of last year.
Wow. Oh, I'm really excited. First of all, that's amazing that you wrote a book. Like that's really cool in itself. My ADHD is like could never focus on that. And like that teacher perspective, right? For me is like yes, all teachers we just need that, right? Especially teachers who aren't part of the LGBTQ plus community or maybe don't have a lot of folks in their immediate social circles who are. And they truly do want to be supportive and an ally to their students and the students' families and and the community. Really, when you're a teacher, you're not just like these are my X amount of kids. You just kind of become a part of everything. Um, I just think that's really amazing and going to be so helpful, more so now than ever, where teachers are trying to figure out, well, if I can't have a rainbow flag, if I can't have this, if we can't have these kinds of celebrations, if I can't have my pronouns in my email signature or on my pin on my, badge or whatever, what other ways can I show up that isn't going to get me fired or more? Right?
Yeah.
That's like the why this is so wild to me. This is like even saying this out loud feels really just wild.
It's a bizarre. We feel like we're in the upside down a little bit, right? Like
Yeah.
and I to be upfront about it, I finished the book, so I finished the draft of the book, which means I had written the actual words. I was done the morning after the election. So
Mm.
we realized who was going to be president about 12 hours before I was finished with this book, and I revised my intro. So I
Mm.
went through and I was like, okay, because I had worked with the Harris campaign, so I had been spending some time like going to DC and going to rallies and trying to learn about her education policy and trying to get people to learn more about how life would be less of a nightmare for most of us if maybe she was president. And I was hoping I'd never have to find out. Um, and and so when I woke up and I realized that wasn't going to happen, and then I went back and looked at my draft and I was like, I wrote this book, like even though I had this hope, I wrote this book as if she was not going to be the president. I wrote this book as if everybody was going to soon be in the same position that a lot of teachers in Texas and Florida already are,
Mm-hmm.
where, we have probably pretty soon a national don't say gay policy, right? We're going to have national policies that keep us from being able to um, ask students how they'd like to be referred to or use the names that they tell us they want in class. Just
Mm-hmm.
wild, right? Because I've been a teacher for longer than I knew the word trans, and I've always called students whatever they wanted to be called, right? And it's usually like the straight cisgender boys that want to go by something different every couple of weeks.
Oh,
But
wild.
but I wrote specifically for this world, for the world that we're in right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is a one that feels disempowered.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because a lot of the things that we were doing before to show that we were allies in our classrooms were just that. They were showing we were allies,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't asking us to do a lot of work to ask if we actually were, or if we were doing things internally to make a more allied space. And
Mm-hmm.
if you'll permit me, I'd love to give you an example.
No, please. Yes.
Because I can say that and everyone's like, what the fuck is he talking about? So
Yeah,
here's
yeah.
so when I say that to be an allied teacher means a change in mindset,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to consider what it's like to be a trans student right now. And generally, a trans student doesn't just have one marginalized identity, right? Like you don't just pick one out of a hat. Like a lot of these students are also dealing with some other level of marginalization, right? So they are disabled, right? Or they're neurodivergent, or you've got students that are indigenous or black or Jewish, right? They have so many different intersecting identities. So pick a couple and think about going through a school day as this student. And if you are a teacher, you can maybe even choose a specific student. The way in which your life is so much harder without knowing that your life is necessarily so much harder, right? It's the same thing when I was talking about growing up as a trans kid who didn't know he was trans. You just don't know that your experience is that much different than everyone else's, but you know that you're mad and frustrated and falling behind and you are don't feel like you have anybody you can trust. Like all those things exist in your body. So if you're walking through the school day that way, if you're a trans kid right now and you have to like pee, it's
Mm-hmm.
11 a.m. and you look and you're, let's say the trans non-binary kid, and you look and the bathroom passes are just they have the two of them. There's the boys pass and the girls pass. And you're trying to decide like, okay, like which one do I grab? Or maybe it's just a regular bathroom pass. You grab the bathroom pass, but you know that one of the only places on campus that doesn't have cameras is the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that's also the place, if you're in high school, right, especially, where students who might be giving you a hard time are probably already there, right? Students who are skipping class or students who are potentially partaking in illicit activities or students that are just, late or whatever. There might be a group of them in that bathroom. There's no way for an adult to know. And there's no way for you to know.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you don't feel comfortable in either of those bathrooms. But there's no gender neutral bathroom because you're on a public high school campus. The only gender neutral bathroom is in the nurse's office. The nurse's office is 6 buildings away. You know
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take you 10 minutes to walk to that building, 10 minutes back, but you know your teacher knows that the closest bathroom is 30 seconds away. So if you walk all the way to the nurse's office, talk to the person at the front desk, convince the nurse to let you use the gender neutral one, and then walk back, you're going to walk in and your teacher's going to say, "Where have you been?
Mm-hmm.
Is this not important to you? Do you think my lesson's not important today?" Teacher might not even know, right, that they have a trans kid.
Mm-hmm.
Or you've got that same kid, right, who got into a world-ending fight with his parents last night. Or came out to his best friend 2 days ago, and now his best friend isn't talking to him. Or every day he wakes up and turns his phone on, because every kid, right, is just, it's the internet before anything else. Your feet haven't even hit the floor. And he sees that he's not going to be able to receive care as he gets older. He can't change his passport. He's not going to be able to travel outside of the country. He's not going to be able to do 100 different things. He sees a country that it looks like hates him. And so he didn't do his homework last night because he's upset. There's no one for him to talk to about it. Your classroom isn't just an allied classroom if you have a flag. Your classroom is an allied classroom if you are flexible with your students,
Mm-hmm.
if you're generous with makeups, if you are asking them questions when they snap back at you instead of snapping back at them,
Mm-hmm.
if you engineer time for creativity and play in your class, if you take the time to learn about them. All of those things are the things that make you an allied teacher. And none of those are against the law.
Right.
They can't take any of those things away from you. But that's the thing that that student is going to remember, and it's the thing that's going to help them survive to graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to be frank, like, fuck pronouns in your email signature.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter. What does matter is that that student feels like they can breathe just a little bit more in your room.
I I love that you gave that picture. I think it made it really clear for folks listening. I'm gonna make an assumption on the folks who are listening, that it made it clear for them because I know it definitely clarified it more for me because I was like, oh yeah, no, I've been a teacher. Like, but again, like for me, I was a teacher in a district where in order to be full time or even close to full time, I was working in multiple buildings each day. So I didn't have my own classroom. But then I would get like dinged, like, why don't you have posters in your classroom? Because I have a $0 budget. This isn't my classroom. I don't feel comfortable leaving things here. And I don't know what you want me to do with that. So that became really difficult when it wasn't like my space, right? And so I think something people don't think a lot about is around bathrooms because most people don't have to think about the bathroom, right? That's not a thing people think about. It's something I know, like when I left teaching, I went and I was a community sex educator, and so I'd go into classrooms as the fun guest speaker who talked about sex stuff, and then left. But one of the things I would notice is a couple of schools I went to had gender neutral bathrooms, and something like that. I'm like, a kid can pee, they can pee, so that means that they can drink water during the day and not have to stress about how they're going to go to the bathroom.
One of the most common ailments that I would see, especially with my trans kids specifically. I was going to say especially my trans boys, but I only had a handful of trans girls who came out when they were in high school in my classroom. It's bladder infections.
Yeah.
And so you have students that go out of their way to make sure they're dehydrated before they come to school,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll do anything they can to make sure they don't have to use the bathroom at all. And I think that this is something that, people don't think through past the headline
Mm-hmm.
if they don't know any trans people, right? They're like, oh, they want to be in our bathrooms, our locker rooms. And I was like, the trans kids are not asserting themselves in spaces. You don't have a trans kid who's kicking down a door like, I'm here.
Yeah, no.
See me take up space in your bathroom. That's not
Never
happening.
once. Never
No,
once have I gone to the bathroom.
no, that is not happening. What's happening is they are making themselves as small as possible. They are shrinking down to nothing to try to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And not being able to see that reality, I don't know, maybe they do, and they're just, this is a thing that has been really challenging for me for the last few years, honestly, is there was a time in which I thought that the problem was that people just didn't have information.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if they just knew more about us, if they just saw us, and I'll tell you, this is one of the reasons I started making content. It's like if they just saw a trans person existing and saw that I was just doing my thing, right? Just existing, just having a good time. And being trans isn't the only thing about me, right? That I'm an artist and I'm an author and I'm a husband, right? And I'm a good chicken caretaker. I'm all these things, right? Then it would be easier. And I think that's true for some people.
Mm-hmm.
But as trans visibility got stronger, the hate did too. And the
Mm.
trans visibility was not a problem, right? Like the people who were becoming more openly and more mainstream trans are really wonderful people who are setting fantastic examples, and you have to do that, right? When you're part of any marginalized community, I'm not going to pretend trans people are the ones dealing with this. You end up being a representative, right, for your community all the time. We had great representation, and it didn't stop the rise in hate against our community. And this projection, right? Like every once in a while, they'll say something so out of left field and so wild about trans people. It started with the litter boxes, right? They're like, there are litter boxes in classrooms. And you're like, hey, you could just Google that. Like you could just, do you want to call a school and ask if they have litter? Because they're going to say no.
Yeah.
I had kitty litter in my classroom that we used specifically for active shooter drills in case somebody couldn't go to the bathroom down the hall. That was what that kitty litter
Holy
was.
crap.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even think about, oh my God.
Yeah. And so
Wow.
there's theories that that's where it came from, was that it was something that we had in active shooter kits. Because I had a bucket in my classroom that was used for active shooter drills. which we got, by the way, after a particularly unfortunate incident with a lockdown that lasted 6 hours.
Mm.
We did not have buckets in classrooms.
Mm-mm.
That's a whole other separate thing. But
Mm.
but this idea, right, that like they would keep saying wild things. I remember when Trump went on and said that they were giving kids trans surgeries while they were at school. I was like, what?
What?
When my husband had top surgery, it took us 6 months to raise 30 grand. And then I had to book a hotel for 3 nights. So like it was like a half block from the surgeon because he couldn't sit in a car for more. Like you're not, what are you talking about, trans surgeries? And I thought, well, this is it, right? Everyone will be like, that's ridiculous, and we'll move on. But they were like, I can't believe they're doing that in schools. I can't believe they're giving trans surgeries to the kids. What are you? I can't believe they're giving them hormones. I can't give them aspirin.
Right.
What do you mean? And so when we're talking about trans kids using restrooms at school, there's a I, I guess my last thing I'll say about this is when we're talking about flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
often the go-to phrase, if a student has to go to the bathroom in class, is they'll say, "Can I go to the bathroom? Why didn't you go at break? Why didn't you go at lunch? It was just break, it was just lunch." And you think, right, you're a teacher, and we have this thing where we make things about us, we personalize, which is fair. We personalize and we're like, this student doesn't value my class, doesn't value what they have to learn here. No, they're waiting for that bathroom to be empty.
Mm.
They're waiting for everyone to be in class.
Mm.
Because at lunch, again, if that's the only place on campus that has no cameras, no adults, that is a not safe place to be.
Right.
And we have evidence of that.
Mm-hmm.
We have very strong evidence of that.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to sit here, right, and say things that I know are true, that I experienced for a decade, and to know that you could put them in front of somebody that's made their decision about trans people and it wouldn't matter. And I hope that's not true forever. It feels
Yeah.
true right now.
Yeah. I I hope it doesn't stay true forever either. I don't know how we get away from this just straight up hatred of people just for being who they are, right? Like, and this like othering of people because their experience is different than mine. So therefore, bad. They equal bad. Me, yeah, I equal good. And like you said, a lot of these examples that are being used to like push this narrative around trans people is not none of it, right? There is no situation at all where a middle schooler, high schooler athlete is like, you know what? I'm not doing so well living my life as a boy in the boy sports world. But if I just start being a girl, then I'm gonna dominate. Like if that was a thing, we would see trans women just like dominating all sports. And we don't, right? Like
Boys won't even hold a purse. Like if their girlfriend is in a dressing room, they won't hold her sweater without
right.
worrying that somebody is thinking that they look gay. Like you think they're going to fully trans their gender so
Yeah.
that they can maybe place higher? And also like how insulting to I was a roller derby athlete for a very long time. So I played derby for 10 years. And the
Yes.
number of times I got my shit rocked by a woman who had never touched testosterone in her life, who is who had been a woman since the day she was born, right? Like, and everyone had always agreed with her. And the smallest, most dainty, feminine-looking women who just laid me out like I was nothing. You just have to really undervalue women as a whole to
Hmm.
believe that not only that men would do that, but that it would work and any man would suddenly dominate every woman
Yeah.
if he were to do that. But I wonder how there are so many women that don't see that as the obvious insult that it is to their capabilities and their strength. It's really sad.
Oh, it's so sad. It's gross. It's like have some more respect for you. Like we've come so far as women in this country. Like have more respect for yourself and be a girl's girl. You know what I mean? Like
Be a girl's girl. That's right. We all should be girls' girls.
yes, like lift. I don't succeed by pushing other people down, right? Like I just never will, and I don't excel. And if I were to excel, I know for me, like I would not feel good about that. Like my previous Catholic guilt would still creep in and be like, girl, know, God is watching.
I miss the women's restroom.
Yeah.
It's so nice in there. Like this is ultimately we come back to, this bathroom discussion. Like I when I realized I had to start using the men's room, I was like, please no. Like I can't, just give me another week. But my voice was dropping too fast. I wasn't ready. I hadn't prepared myself emotionally for what that experience is going to be like because men do not keep that space particularly tidy.
Mm-mm.
They don't chat. I love chatting. I love to chat. You even look at a man accidentally in the mirror while you're washing your hands,
Mm-mm.
and it's fully like the PvP music, like the Kill Bill music comes on.
Yeah.
There's no community in there. It's
Mm-mm.
awful.
No, no, the women's restroom is community, especially like the women's restroom at a bar at like, getting ready to be closing time. There is no better community and love for complete strangers that you have never met and will never see again after this moment.
You're really sleeping on the office bathroom.
Yes.
Women's bathrooms in office settings, because that means so
Yes.
there's at least a handful of women who have to go to that bathroom every day, and
Hmm.
they've taken that as a personal charge to make it a delightful space. There's a new soap in there, and
Yes.
it's refilled and it's foaming.
Hmm.
There's something smells good. There's a Glade plug-in. There's maybe I remember the women's bathroom. Like I'm nostalgic, right? The women's bathroom in the teachers' lounge at my school, there was like a whole cabinet of items you might need,
Yeah.
and it was just beautiful. Like the fact that they cared enough, or like there was every once in a while like an applique, like those clings, window clings on the
Yeah.
mirrors that would say affirmations on them. There are
Yes.
no affirmations in the men's room.
No. Oh, we need
And
to get.
I think I would not be viewed favorably if I brought them.
Yes. If you were just like in the men's room writing with the window markers, beautiful affirmations, and some stereotypical bro walks in, like, the fuck is going on?
I want to bring girl boss bathroom energy to the men's room.
I love that. I
That's
love
the
that.
secret that's the trans agenda moving forward is we're yassifying the men's bathrooms. We're making them smell better, and we're also going to set a little alarm. So if he walks out without washing his hands, everyone will know.
Yes. I love that. Oh, thank you on behalf of community and the world.
You're so welcome.
I support this. I support this mission. Um, I this is my least favorite part.
Is it
I
at the end, Holly? Do we have to
Yeah,
say goodbye?
we have to say goodbye for now. We have
Okay.
to say we have to say goodbye for now. It has been an absolute delight chatting with you. You are just lovely. I have no bad things to say about you. You're amazing.
I would like to say for the record now that I challenge the other three trans men that are coming on to have as delightful a time as I did. I think I'm going to rank supreme. I'm going to be on the top of the podium by myself after all
uh,
this. Unless I know them, which I'm realizing right now, it's a small community, I might. So I take it back. Actually, trans men are all powerful. Thank you, brothers.
Oh my gosh, you're so awesome. So I will make sure to have ways that folks can follow you, support you in the show notes as well as how to pre-order your book so that everyone can get onto that as well. The last question I always like to ask all my guests, is there anything you wish we would have talked about and didn't, and or some parting words of advice for the listeners?
Hmm. Well, I'm all out of advice. I gave too much of that while I was teaching, so I'm going to skip advice. That's the really nice, holistic, wholesome way to do it. I'm not going to do it. I think the next time I'm on,
Yes.
I want to talk more about sex.
Yes, please.
I'm ready.
Oh,
Next time. Next time.
oh my gosh. Yay. Okay. I have goosebumps, not even joking. I am like, yes, please. I know I need to talk about sexier stuff. We always take like weird turns in my conversations. Like I had a guest on once who was a personal friend of mine and a former coworker. And we got talking about like COVID restrictions, and then we were both like, this is a weird turn this took. Let's bring it on back to talking about like sexual
Sex.
health and being a drag performer and like let's bring
You
it
had
back
a
to
you had a sexy drag performer on and you talked about COVID.
I know.
Way to drop the
Okay.
ball.
So I know. Well, we brought it back. We brought it back. And I went through editing. I was like, I could maybe shorten some of this COVID stuff. So it was fine. It was fine. But no, I love that. And definitely you are welcome to come back any old time, and we will definitely schedule time and talk about some sex stuff. I have so many things going through my mind now. I'm like, yay. But again, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you.
Another huge thank you to Flint for being on the show. I was honestly so excited when he responded back saying he wanted to be on the show as a guest. Um, like I said, I've been following him on social media for a very long time and just knew he would be such a great guest for the show, and I absolutely had so much fun. I will put the information about how to get your hands on his book coming up that he had mentioned, and of course, all the ways to support Flint. But again, thank you so much, and cannot wait to have you back on so we can have way, way more fun talks.